Hello and welcome to English class of Standard 12. We are going through the novel The Sign of Four. We have completed chapter 2. Now we will be going through chapter 3 in quest of a solution, that is in search of a solution. In chapter 2 we have already seen that Mary gives a statement to Holmes that her father is missing since last 10 years, and from that time onwards she is getting a pearl every year through post, and now on that day she had received a letter which says that she should come and meet the person who is writing the letter. Also, she can bring along with her two people, and she should come and meet on the address given in the letter. Sherlock Holmes agrees to go along with Mary with Watson. He asks her to come in the evening at 7 o'clock. Now it is 5:30 when Sherlock Holmes is returning, and he is returning in a good mood, and while taking the cup of tea which is poured for him, he is saying that there is no great mystery in this matter. Now here's the conversation between Watson and Holmes. Holmes further says that the facts they appear to admit of only one explanation. Watson says that what? In curiosity he is saying, what? You have solved it already? Well, that would be too much to say, says Holmes. Holmes says that he has discovered a suggestive fact, and that suggestive fact, it needs to add details to it. He has found on consulting the back files of Times that Major Sholto, who was of Upper Norwood in late 34th Bombay Infantry, he has died upon 28th of April 1882. Watson is unable to understand Holmes. Watson says that he sees no link between his suggestion and death of Major Sholto. Holmes is surprised with Watson's question. He starts explaining Watson that Captain Watson had disappeared, and the only person whom he knew and could have visited in London was Major Sholto. But Major Sholto is denying of having heard that he knew of Captain Watson was in London. 4 years later, Sholto also dies. Within a week of his death, Captain Watson's daughter Mary receives a valuable present, which is repeated from year to year, and now she has received a letter that describes her that she is being wronged, that is, some dishonesty is done to her. Holmes says that what wrong or what dishonesty can all this refer to? This can only be of some damage related to her father. Holmes further says that why the presents should start coming or begin immediately after Sholto's death. Definitely Sholto's heirs know something about the mystery, and they want to compensate to Mary. Holmes asks Watson whether he has any other alternative theory of whatever the facts that are present before them regarding Mary's case. Watson surprisingly says that what a strange compensation this is, and how strangely this compensation is made. Also, why the letter should be written now rather than it should have been written 6 years ago. Again the letter is speaking of giving her, that is Mary, justice. Now what justice will she get now? It is too much to expect that her father might be alive. There is no other justice in her case of her father to be alive. Holmes admits that there are difficulties, and certainly he will be able to solve those difficulties when they will meet the person who has written Mary the letter, and after that he will be able to solve all those difficulties. Just at that moment, Holmes sees Miss Watson coming in four-wheeler. Holmes inquires Watson whether he is ready to move along with them. Watson, who is the narrator, he picks up his hat and the heavier stick along with him, but he observes that Holmes takes along with him the revolver from his drawer and he slips that revolver into his pocket. Narrator Mr. Watson says that it was clear for him when he saw Holmes taking revolver along with him that the work for which they were going that night was a serious one. He says that Miss Mawson, she seemed to be in self-control. She was neatly dressed, but her face was a little bit pale. She confidently answered the additional questions that were put to her by Sherlock Holmes. Miss Mawson, she gave some information about Major Sholto. She said that Major Sholto was a very particular friend of her father. His letters were full of allusions, that is, they carried some hidden meaning. Major Sholto and her father were in command of the troops at Andaman Islands, so they were together for a long time. She also has found a paper in her father's desk which no one would be able to understand. She thought that it was of slightest importance, but Holmes might care to see it, so she has brought the paper along with her and she takes out the paper to show it to Holmes. Holmes, he carefully unfolds the paper and places that paper upon his knee. Then he methodically examines that paper with his double lens. It is the paper of native Indian manufacture, Holmes says, and then he says that it has been pinned, that is, the paper has been pinned on the board. The diagram on that paper, it appears to be the plan of a part of a large building which has numerous halls, corridors and passages. Carefully observing the paper, Holmes goes on saying that at one point on that paper is a small cross which is done in red ink and above it is 3.37 written from the left in a faded pencil writing. In the left hand corner there is a curious heliographic, that is mysterious writing, like four crosses are there in a line with their arms touching. Beside it, it is written there in a very rough and a coarse writing the sign of 4. In front of that it is written Jonathan Small, Mohammed Singh, Abdullah Khan and Dost Akbar. Holmes says that no, he cannot confess that whether that document was of any importance related to the matter, but he says that definitely that document is of certain importance because it was kept in the pocketbook of Mary's father. Miss Mawson, she confirms that she got the document from her father's pocketbook. Preserve that document very carefully, says Mr. Watson. He says that it might prove to be of use to them in that case. He also says that he suspects that the matter might turn on to be much deeper and more subtle than at first he thought it would be. He should consider his ideas, he supposes, and he leans back in the cab, that is in the taxi, and he is thinking over that matter seriously. Miss Morson and Watson, they both chatted in a very low tone, talking about the work they were going for, but Holmes, he maintained silence all throughout the journey. It was September evening, and not yet it was 7 o'clock, but the day had become dull. There was drizzly fog that lay upon the great city. Mud-colored clouds were drooping sadly over the muddy streets. The description of the street is given here. Down the Strand, the lamps were but misty splotches of diffused light which threw a feeble circular gleam upon the slimy pavement, which means that the lamps were just giving a circular light, a circular shine on the pavement, that is footpath. Also, yellow light was coming from the shop windows, which looked just like the vapors in the air, and that also give radiance across the crowded thoroughfare, that is across the road on which people walk. So this was the description of the atmosphere outside. There was a fright in the narrator's mind, and so he could see ghost-like images or faces at the end of the procession, means the group of the faces that were seen on the street. He could see them looking from the darkness, from the gloom to the light, and also from the light to the dark, the faces were moving, and the narrator was afraid a little bit. The dull, heavy evening and the strange business upon which they were engaged both combined to make Mr. Watson, the narrator, to be nervous and depressed. He could see from Miss Mawson's manners that she was suffering from the same feeling. Holmes alone among them was the superior one, and he was least influenced by the situation. Holmes held his open notebook upon his knee, and from time to time he was jotting down figures or he was writing something, and this he was doing it in the light of his pocket lantern. At the Lyceum Theatre is the place where the letter writer had called Mary to meet. It was already crowded at the side entrances, and in the front there was a continuous stream of hansoms and four-wheelers. Hansoms is the two-wheeler carriage which is drawn by the horses. From them, men and women were coming out to go to the theatre. As they hardly reached the third pillar, which was the meeting place, there came a man who was dressed as a coachman, and he asked them whether they are the parties who had come with Miss Mawson. Miss Mawson came forward and she said that she was Miss Mawson and the two gentlemen were her friends. The man looked carefully at Watson and Holmes, and he asked Miss Mary Mawson to give him the word that they were not policemen. Miss Mawson, she gave the man a word that none of her companions were police. The man then blew a whistle and called a four-wheeler. The four-wheeler came near them. The man mounted inside the box, that is the carriage, and also Watson, Holmes and Mary, they went inside the carriage. The man, the driver, he whipped up the horse, and the carriage started to move in a fast pace through the foggy streets. The situation was now a curious one. They were driven to an unknown place. They were not knowing who had invited them. There was a very good reason for them to think about their journey as well as what issues they might have to face next. But Miss Mawson, her demeanor, that is her manners, were admirable, resolute, and they were collected as ever, says the narrator. The narrator says that he tried to cheer and amuse Miss Mawson by reminiscence, that is by telling her the stories of his adventures in Afghanistan. But to tell us the truth, he says that he himself was excited at the situation, that he was so curious to reach the destination that he himself was not involved in the stories. He says that now when Mawson, she declares what he has told at that time. He has said that there was a musket looking into his tent when he was there, and he had fired a double-barreled tiger cub. Actually, it is double-barreled musket, that is a double-barreled gun, and the tiger cub was looking from the tent. So he has wrongly said this as he was not involved in the story. The narrator says that at first he had some idea as to which direction they were driving, but soon, because of the pace, that is speed, the fog, and his own limited knowledge of London, he lost the way. He knew nothing. He knew only this thing, that they were going a very long way. But for Sherlock Holmes, he says that he is never at fault. He muttered the names of all the squares of the by streets as the cab was moving ahead. Holmes was taking the names of the roads. Rochester Row, said he. Now Vincent Square. Now we come out on the Vauxhall Hall Bridge Road. We are making for Surrey side apparently. Yes, I thought so. Now we are on the bridge. You can catch the glimpse of river, said Sherlock Holmes. Mr. Watson, the narrator says that indeed they had a quick view of the stretch of Thames river, with the lamp shining upon the broad silent water. But their cab, it went ahead, and it was soon involved in the labyrinth of the streets upon the other side. That is, in the network of the streets on the other side of the river, their cab moved ahead. As the cab moved ahead, narrator went on saying the name of the roads through which they were moving. Wordsworth Road, Priory Road, Lark Hall Lane Road, Stockwell Place, Robert Street, Cold Harbour Lane, and so on. The narrator says that their search did not appear to take them to the very fashionable regions, because where they had reached, the neighborhood was of doubtful, that is questionable, and forbidding one, which means it was very unfriendly one where they had been reaching. The place where they had reached had long lines of dull brick buildings. In the corner it had public houses, and then came the rows of two-storied villas, in front of which had a miniature garden, and again there were interminable lines of new staring brick buildings. It all seemed as if the monster tentacles are given out, thrown out by the giant city into the country. At last the cab stopped at the third house, and just as the same as its neighbor houses, this house too had a single glimmer, that is a single light in the kitchen window. On knocking, the door was instantly thrown open by a servant who was dressed in yellow turban, white loose-fitting clothes, and a yellow sash. This servant was completely a mismatch, because his looks and dress-up were Asian, and that place where he was standing was a commonplace doorway of a third-rate suburban residential house. The servant said, "The Sahib awaits you," which means that his master was waiting for them. And even as he spoke there came a high piping voice from some inner room. "Show them into me, Khidmatgar," it cried. "Show them straight into me." It was saying, that voice was saying that bring the guest directly to him. Now here we come to an end of chapter 3 of the novel. This novel is written by Sir Arthur Ignatius Conan Doyle. If you want to know the story ahead, you just go ahead and read the novel. Thanks for watching. Meet you in the next video with the brainstorming part of the novel The Sign of Four. Till then, goodbye. So friends, don't forget to subscribe the channel and share the video, and also to like the video. Thanks for watching.